When a community or a tribe is vulnerable, ignorant of their culture, heritage, or purpose, the probability of them becoming puppets, instruments, or prey to a relentless machine that seeks only to divide and conquer is almost inevitable. Funeral and buried her as a man. And
Disrespectful.
I think that it's a smack in the face to God, because it's like you're insulting God's intelligence, because God knows what Fat did while she lived. You know, and I remember having a conversation with Fat, and Fat told me, she overheard me say I was going to church. And Fat said, "What are you going to church for? We going to hell anyway." And you know, that's a sad thing, but that is what's commonly thought amongst our community. We all think like that. I mean, not just some of us.
One time I did. I know I did.
And I can openly admit too, I did as well.
I thought I was going to hell.
Oh God, I mean,
I imagined that until my faith asked me to stop my Nissan Maxima and barge into a heterosexual Baptist church with ushers and all in the church. And I demanded that Matthew 19:12, speaking of the three types of eunuchs that are...
I remember when I got out of being incarcerated for 4 months. And I had written a letter about my time in jail. And that snowballed into me becoming one of the leading advocates in the community. World, living your life, sticking your pearls, doing big things, writing your name on the wall of life, erasing shame. I celebrate you, girl, cause it's your world. Living your life, sticking your pearls, doing big things, writing your name on the wall of life, erasing shame. Let's pop a bottle cause she making straight A's instead of dying the A's she got from lame trade. Let's give her props cause she straight handling business. Do believe in God, heard her say she's a witness. Representing the T in the LGBTQ community. Now, in his story, and I'm very careful to say his story, beings who look like myself, with dark skin and kinky, tightly coiled hair, who celebrated our foremothers boldly, had not traditionally been respected. As a matter of fact, in the quarter, we were profiled and arrested for many times no reason, just because of how we looked. I don't want to go in a bar that I'm not wanted in, but I want him to at least be man enough to say why we're not allowed in this bar. Because he said, I can't tell y'all why. He's not from here, and I haven't been in the free quarters in years, and I walk up in here, and he say, as soon as we get to the door, so I just want somebody to tell me why we can't come into this establishment.
Very simple. We have the right to refuse service to anybody inside.
But why? But why? But why? Because you got a bar full of people. Why? I don't want to go in a bar. But still, I believed in all of the colors of the rainbow. All these colors that tied us together. So I continue to strive to impress our Caucasian brothers because I never really had any Caucasian lesbian friends. Except that Caucasian who I met when I did that panel for free that time at Breakout, who scammed me, gave me a job.
Sold us, we sold us.
Working so she could hold a meeting with all of my friends and get them to sign their names so she could then get a grant for $50,000 twice and not give one dime of it to the trans community. Yeah, I remember that Caucasian lesbian. Almost left her out. Whoops. The only ones I really knew were the brothers. After New Legacy came into being, we began to create videotapes of our interactions with each other in community, of us sharing our stories, of us healing together collectively, of us displaying our talents and participating in the art of performance in a safe space, that space which was my first home on my own when I moved back to Louisiana from Georgia.
Amen. Hallelujah. Amen. Now, our announcements will be read by Sister Tiffany. Everybody give her a hand as she comes.
I was glad when they said unto me, let's go into the house of the Lord. First giving honors to God, the priestess, members, visitors, and friends. This is the day that the Lord has made, and I will rejoice and be glad in it. Amen.
Amen.
Now I have a few announcements on this 5th day of August in the year of our Lord 2012. The announcement is as follows. New Legacy Ministries will be having services bi-monthly starting at 3:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. and that's every month. We welcome all to join us on this quest for the truth. The announcement will be posted on Facebook and other major social media. Also in November, we will be having our 2nd annual Transgender Remembrance Day celebration. And if you would like to perform, participate in any way you can, please make a note on our list we have in front and provide us with your name, email address, phone number, etc. Thank you. We hear the announcement, and on behalf of New Legacy Ministry, I want to welcome you all to our service again.
Amen. I could remember being so excited and trying to find ways to raise money to do the work without having to do sex work, because I knew it was important for me not to take the risk of not being able to be around for my community by going out and getting arrested trying to do sex work. I already had a job working at McDonald's.
But this is just the first part of our little journal, letting you know how you're supposed to treat your girl, your partner, the person you care about, the person that you love. So this is just a personal blog, and we're going to show you some more things that we do together.
That's not enough money to fund a movement. So I wanted to sell DVDs to people who worked at Crescent Care and down at NORAP, at the New Orleans Planning Council, and all of these public health officials who were making money off of our bodies and our lives, who were profiting off of our suffering. And so one day, I was at the Universalist Church, and I said, would you like to buy a copy of our DVDs? And I didn't have the language to say, this is our culture. This is our heritage that I'm sharing with you, and I would think that you would be interested in this because you want to understand the community that you're serving. I was basically selling you our culture, giving you a peek into our culture for $5. And I'll never forget what he said. He said, Tila, I just bought one from you last month and I haven't watched that one yet. I looked at him and I said, well, you know what? Here, take this one for free and do me a favor and watch this one. And I walked away. After that, I started getting invited to events and places like the gala.
We sold us, we sold us.
Sold us. Still pet
And the Art Against AIDS event.
that dough. Feed your fans lies cause you don't want them to grow. Long as they buy your product, you don't care if they po. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Claim you love God, but it's the money.
Came this close to getting a job once. But of course I was too unpredictable.
Some of you gatekeepers and advocates and people who hold position in the community would deceive the masses and make them think that the reason why you got the position that you have is because you was the best. When really, they knew that you weren't gonna break script. They knew they could trust you to tap dance until the soles fell off of them shoes. Girl, don't do me. Unless you looking to get done.
A wild card. Because my loyalty has always been to my people rather than my pockets. Even when my people were ready to sell out, my conscience would always convict me to hold on just a little while longer. This video is about that holding on. It's about having the courage to walk away even when everyone else thinks that you're stupid. Even when everyone else thinks that you should just go on and take the money and run. That's not my narrative, and I pray it never will be.
The strongest branches will never betray the roots. I'm covered, you covered, we covered. So stay covered as you discover the self. LelimLeLur. Every day cover head, hands, shoulders, knees, and toes. You cover to the flow, not bring it up slow. Not bring it up slow. Every day cover head, hands, shoulders, knees, and toes. You cover to the flow, not bring it up slow. Not bring it up slow. Check this out. This meditation will take you further. If it's by
Great
shade,
awakening. It is I, we, Kaneen Massa. This video has been setting in my spirit for a while. I was trying to focus on my book, my recollections. I am in the 12th recollection. I have 2 more recollections to go, and it will be ready for the rough draft. Right now, I am so thankful to be in this space of clarity in my life. I've already been talking with the ancestors and making peace with what will be the next part of the journey for me for us. I have asked them for many things. And most all things that I've asked my ancestors for, they have given them to me. I wanted to have gender confirmation. I received that.
The truth from you, oh lie, oh yeah, oh lie.
I wanted to go out of the country. I've left this country 4 times.
The body, but this message will thrive and breathe. Make cage my flesh, I'll just raise up my frequency as a child of infinity. I'll vibrate. I'll vibrate.
To Africa. What's interesting is right now the person who is producing my beats lives in Canada, so I'm sewing into Canada currently monthly, and I'm also sewing into Africa every other month. And the reason why I sew into Africa is because they have something that I want. And when you sew because it's something that you want. And what I want more than anything is to remember who I was, to remember who we were before the colonizer came, to tap into that and to channel that. And even though I feel like in Africa, they're definitely falling asleep in pursuit of the things that the Matrix has to offer, I feel like there's still that memory, and I saw it when I was there. And so I sew into that, and I encourage my sisters and brothers who I sew into over there to hold on to that, you know, in pursuit of whatever it is that you seek, and may the ancestors be with you. I sew into Canada because the artist there, who is of color, you know, who is very much my shade complexion, he's amazing, and he is very fair with his prices. Not to mention the Canadian dollar is not as strong as the US dollar. So the price that he actually asked for turns out being smaller than what I would probably be charged over here for the same quality. So I personally feel like we are children of the cosmos, and the whole universe is my home. I am a child of the universe, so I sew into the universe. I am not cut off from anything. I have access to everything. There is no lack or limitation, only the lack or limitation that I set in my mind. Amen, a woman. Anyway, the purpose of this video is to talk about one of the reasons more in detail, because I talked about why I did not want to be the face or be someone who is looked upon with great esteem in the transgender community. I observed the movement, which I sold my time and energy into, starting from, I would say, now I started my journey to embrace the path of my foremothers. I started on this path when I was 5 years old. You know, that was my first recollections of playing with my cousins and playing the girl role, using girl pronouns, playing on the girl side at school, on campus, just all through school. There were examples that I was already on the path. For a while, I was ashamed of it because of the society that I grew up in, the system that I grew up in. So I started to suppress it. And then around 14, which is one of my favorite numbers, at 13, I was outed. At 14, I owned it. And here we are in 2021, which equals 5. and 14 equals 5, not to mention this $1,400 that they keep talking about. So the 5 just keeps popping up because the 5 represents the 4 elements, and when we, the avatar, take the elements into ourselves and create that which we want to create. So anyway, at 14, I owned it. You know, at 13, my uncle, he, in his anger, outed me to try to make it shameful. But at 14, I owned it. And ever since that day, I've walked this path with all of the ridicule, with all of the persecution, with all of the condemnation. I still owned who I was, not fully understanding why, because I'm in a human body. During the time I came up, the world was not ready to see women in positions of power. And even though I didn't have the language to articulate what was happening around me, I understood that as I embraced the path of my foremothers, that meant that I was becoming more about my physical than I was about what I was saying spiritually, what was coming out of my mouth, what I was expressing. That period in which I embraced my femininity, and I'll talk about a lot more of this in the book that I'm getting ready to put out. All of that kind of unfolds in the book. But what I really want to focus on in this video is talking about how that impacted me. So in my 20s, even in my own community, even in the communities in which I had been assigned to, because I was cast out of the traditional family setting because I was so rebellious, and my family really didn't have the tools to deal with a being like myself. And so the communities that I found oasis in were the alphabet, you know, the gay community, the trans community, which the trans hadn't really developed its name yet in the South, but these are places that I found oasis. And even in those communities, I was always prized for having a body. I was always, oh, she fine, she got a body, she's sexy. Not often was anyone ever celebrated for having a voice, especially someone who was extremely feminine. It always had something to do with your physical, your aesthetics, how you looked, you know. And even when we think of queens, you know, dignitaries, people, the pastor's wife, we really kind of focus on how they look rather than what it is that is actually coming out of their mouth, the conversations they're holding, the things that they're talking about. And so for my 20s, and I think a major part of my 30s, I was still caught up in those physical attributes of myself, you know, what I could offer to a space aesthetically rather than what I could bring to the conversation or how I could inspire a conversation with my intellectual and spiritual gifts. And I don't think that anyone who wanted my presence really cared if I had a voice. Involving the lesbian community, I've always kind of felt like, for the most part, and I won't say this about all lesbians, because there are some Black lesbians who really have made me feel accepted and have welcomed my voice and have welcomed my communication and my opinion. But there have also been lesbian women who have treated me like, you're not a real woman. We don't really need you to talk. We just need you here because you'll increase our numbers. You know, we'll go along with this whole sisterhood thing, but we don't have the same narrative. So, you know your place, you're a sidekick, and that's your role.
It's still like a lot, it's very problematic at times. So I feel that, okay, so rewinding it back just a little. Okay, so No, definitely not, because I just feel like even though I have a lot of lesbian friends and stuff like that, but I also know there's a lot of lesbians that look down upon transgender people. I have a lot of gay friends, but I also know there's a lot of gay people that look down on transgender individuals. So should I feel that we should combine the communities? Hell no, leave them separate the way they are. Like at the end of the day, like, you know, I just feel like where we at in our lives and how society, you know, have already like pushed us off into our own communities already. But I just feel like, yeah, it's just definitely it's the LBGT is separate.
So you think it's segregated? Leave it alone. Leave it the way it is.
In the LGBTQI questioning community, that we're all happy and gay. We fall into this whole spectrum of what gay is. I think that may be in the years and years, a couple years ago, it could have been, that could have been the focus, and I think it was different then as well, because if you think about like where we are in any when you talk about the world, there's cultures, there's African American culture, for example, but then you could also say, well, they're Afro-Caribbean, so that's another culture. So there are subcultures within a culture. And I think the LGBT community is just like that. You know, there's this whole, I totally agree with Milan and Gina with where people want to put us. I'm okay because I understand the concept of community and what that means for overarching goal. But am I all right with not trying to fit in? I'm like Milan, I'm okay with not fitting in, because I think that's when struggles happen, that we're not always clear about how to make that separation about who we are and how we identify. I've been in positions and in rooms with people who are supposed to be my ally and been broken completely down for calling myself a black lesbian. And then my partner is not here right now, but if she was here, because she's masculine of center, which is a new thing in itself. Let's talk about that.
And so there has been that harm and that pain that I have felt when it came to the lesbian community, black lesbian community in particular, because these are the people that are in my backyard. When it comes to black gay men, a lot of times I felt like I was supposed to be the ornament or the showpiece, and when I was allowed to speak or talk, I had to be regurgitating the things that I had been given permission by Big Brother Almighty to say. One time when I was working on a job, someone who I was very close with, you know, just came out and said, basically, you know, they're paying for your silence, right? And while I was working for the state back in 2015, I was very vulnerable at that time. I was excited to have a job of such a magnitude. I felt like I was transitioning out of this space in which I was in.
Than Christmas and Kwanzaa. This DNA been here, but some came from Ghana. Old folks used to say we're going up yonder. Commune with ancient grass, ex-Mary if she wanna. Blessed by the mother and the father. For my liberation, they became martyrs. Yeah, we made it through the blood and the slaughter. Can't run if you want.
That seemed hopeless and practically void of opportunities. When I was offered the opportunity to work for the state by members of the black queer community, I was excited over the opportunity, and I did some amazing work in helping to gather the data and the materials necessary for them to get a gigantic grant for like $7 million. And one of the key components to getting that grant was the work that they would be doing in the trans community. While I was working there, it was myself and a Latino girl. We've had our differences, but we've also had each other's back in some instances. her name was Jada Cardona.
And out in the cold, I thought you'd rather have Jesus than that silver and gold. You collect fat checks on promissory notes. It don't matter if it's the ones your oppressor wrote. But you're looking at me like a joker. You got secret handshakes with this dude like your chummy. Running to his money like the bees running honey. The only difference is that the bees create the honey. You just make the money, then he takes the money.
And we were both in the meeting that day when they were discussing Black trans women who have been homeless and positive. Now, in that meeting, two very important things happened. One of the things that happened was it was on the table and it was written into the grant that they would hire a trans person to be a manager. And because they hired us at entry-level part-time positions, they struck out the notion that they would have a transgender manager. And the part that was particularly perplexing was that when the person who did it, who was a part of my community, who looked like me, when they scratched through that, there was a smirk on their face saying, we're not going to do that. And after that happened, the conversation that was going on was about people who could identify with being Black, people who could identify with being positive or having the nothingness, people who could identify with being homeless, and people who could identify with being trans. So since I was someone who could identify with and resonate with all of those, I spoke, and I spoke a lot, and I feel that that wasn't wrong for me to do, but I did find out I was wrong because I was told by a friend and a colleague who was my supervisor, when I pull your chain, that's when you ball.
Transgendered persons as the individuals that they see themselves, because we are there, and I am very much aware of what is happening to you and the people that look and sound like you. And so I want to say, for those individuals, I want to apologize on their behalf, because I know that that's hurtful. Where that comes from is, and Dion and I have had conversations about this before, is hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
And so we do that very, very well. And as African Americans, we've been taught to hurt others. I feel bad about myself. I've been taught to feel bad about myself. You're different. Let me point you out. Let me make you feel bad. How dare you be a person who's born this sex and want to be something else? So I want to apologize on that behalf and encourage you to look for the helpers. And I am a helper.
And it was on that day I filled out my resignation for that job. And I was beseeched by another member of the gay community, another gay brother, who pleaded with me not to go live on my platform and discuss what happens in disloyalty.
If you fake, stay away from me. We don't commune with disloyalty.
Instead, how I chose to express that grief was to travel to Atlanta. Now, mind you, I was so disshuffled by everything that was going on in my life. I was losing my husband, who had just come home from prison. I had just quit my job. With everything that was going on, I wrecked my car. So I left my car in my parking lot, broken, after I drove it home. And one of my girlfriends gave me $200 to go towards the art that I was doing. Her name was Meredith.
This meditation will take you further. If it's about shade, I can't be bothered. Shine bright like a model Fendi and Prada. Hole in my spirit, both my daddy and my mama. More spiritual than Christmas and Kwanzaa. This DNA been here, but some came from Ghana. Old folks used to say we're going up yonder.
And me and Meredith, we have a very peculiar relationship. We haven't spoken in years. And one of the reasons why me and her haven't spoken is because she wanted to mentor my career. She wanted to guide my art form. In order for her to invest, it couldn't be me just exploring and learning for myself. it had to be her kind of guiding it. And Meredith's background is she studied at Harvard. She is Caucasian and Filipino. And she is a brilliant person who I met at a conference. And while I admire and respect her for so many things, I think that when you're truly invested in someone being authentic, you don't really need to guide them when you see they have the potential. Like, definitely don't enable. I'm not upset about people who have not just thrown money at me over the years, although I do kind of question how some people who gave me so much money when I was using drugs are not offering very much support at all these days. But that's a whole nother video. So anyway, at that time, Meredith gave me $200 to go to Atlanta and to shoot this film, which I will share right here.
Begging to be left to walk on her own, she pleads with her father, mother, to allow her to be separate from him. So much the same of the struggle has been of cisgender women in history who were demonized, burned at the stake and beheaded for wanting to have a voice and to speak for themselves and to be separate from the man in which they came from, in the garden where Adam and Eve dwelled. So now it is the trans woman who is asking for her separation from her gay femme father, mother. Please allow me to be separate from you, but do not leave me. Do not take away your support from me, but allow me to stand and walk proudly on my own. Let the umbilical cord break. Let me stand on my own, but be there with me, loving me always, so that we may dance into the light.
That's a little bit of how I expressed the pain of what had happened to me working at the state by my own community, by a facet of our community. And when I say my own community, I don't mean the gay community, because I'm not gay. And personally, I don't feel like I'm trans either. I feel I am two-spirited. Transness for me equates trading one thing for another. And although I am female gender dominant, I am not trading anything. I am still who I was, and I am also who I am. A man, a woman, and that's on period. So for me, that didn't work. What I'm starting to realize is a lot of people who we assumed actually cared about the trans community, they care more so about garnering resources for themselves, more social equity, social capital for themselves. And that's what I'm really starting to learn. These are things that I've always kind of known as a human being, that I understood as a visionary before it became popular, that trans people have always had the capacity to be more valuable to the machine, more valuable to society, because it's expensive to be a trans person. It's expensive to be a drag queen. So even when we look at gender non-conforming, like when we look at beings like a Lokwek, or their name was once Dark Matter, who has the hairy legs and the hairy face. Most time when you see gender non-conforming people in this reality, they're fashionistas. And so that's another way for the machine to capitalize off of your experience. The machine only features entities in which they can capitalize off of. So trans beings who are prone to having the surgical experience, and that's my narrative. I have had the complete bottom surgery. I've had my breasts done, and just to touch on that whole breast thing, and I've had conversations about this in the past, and I want to throw that in right fast. A little bit of this whole silicone narrative. Lost on for this video. The reason why I did that song at the first part of it, the body is beautiful because a lot of girls are dying for a beautiful body. When I was young, I was genetically blessed to have a nice butt. But when I got to be 23 years old, I started to see the pressure of all the girls around me getting pumped with silicone, and I wanted to be able to compete. Like when you're young, you 21, 22 years old, everything is a competition. So you don't want the other girls to leave you behind. You don't want people to leave you behind. So you do what you need to. There are those pressures. There is, the pressure to feel like you're evolving in your transition. You don't want to look the same way you look 5 years ago today. You know what I'm saying? But then I guess the next question would be, when does it become less about you being fish and more about your self-esteem? Because I think sometimes we get work done to try to fill a void. Right. It's like this we're constantly going back to the field lady, trying to fix something that can't be fixed with a needle. Right. You know what I'm saying? Silicone, getting work done can actually become addictive for some girls. It can actually be a drug to, your hips are never right, your breast is never right, your face is never right, your lips are never right. And it's been perfect, it been looking good, and you just keep going and then you mess it up. Now, in talking about, in addressing how I even feel like these huge campaigns have been coming in around silicone and perhaps even intentionally, the powers that be placed the quality of silicone started to deteriorate around a certain period because countless girls were getting pumped with silicone back in the day and were having no problems. And when the machine saw that it was more lucrative to do these procedures themselves, sort of like what they did to the drug dealers in the streets, how they're taking the weed out of the drug dealers' hands in the streets, and now they're opening up all of these pharmaceutical stores. Now that body augmentation is becoming more accessible to the trans community, it's time to really, really put a scare so that people won't go and get black market silicone. So we're going to lower the quality of black market silicone, allow these casualties to happen, allow these people to die so that it can create a greater demand and push for us to be able to make all the money through big pharma. So now, body work has become more industrialized. And so when we look at the potential for capital that the trans community can bring forth, especially if they continue to recruit people, because now being trans for pay, you can come up off of it. If you put a wig on and go into a place, you could get services, just like people will lie and say that they have the nothingness and they have HIV and all of these different statuses so that they can get free health care and free services in some places. People are willing to pretend to be a person who has changed their gender identity so that they could acquire these services. Now you can be trans for pay. You can be trans for money. And that was another reason why I had to distance myself from the community. I think that people have always paid attention to my ability to observe things. Once we were at an event and they were interviewing all Black trans women. And at that time, of course, I was identifying as Black trans. And while we were in the private room in the waiting area, waiting to go back and, you know, for them to ask us the questions and things, I pointed out that it was a camera in the room and that it was looking at us. And I couldn't physically see the camera. I just assumed that there was a camera there. And when I said that, when we were leaving to go into the next room, the people that were facilitating the group pulled me to the side, gave me my $100, and let me leave. And the rest of the girls had to stay and do the questioning in order to get their $100. So I think that's kind of like been the story of my life. I am a person who critically thinks. I am a person who is often the maleficent in my community, is often the black sheep, is often, I come off as the devil's advocate because I play both sides of the tape. I don't just play one side of the tape, I play both sides. I can look at things from both sides. As a person who has spent thousands of dollars on body modifications, I can still be honest and say that that shouldn't be a choice that we force everyone to take. It shouldn't, we shouldn't try to make the standard of being two-spirit or being a person who is of trans experience or being just a person who considers themselves to be a heterosexual person who does not want to be a different gender but just wants to change body parts. I think that there's a conversation going on around the world right now that is trying to bring everything together. You know, when we think of trans women being promoted, the trans woman that's really being celebrated in this reality is the girl who still has her penis. And the funny thing is, simultaneously on another plane, biological NATO-born females, XX chromosomes, are around these parts, getting their life, pegging these men. So we have women who are born with vaginas who are falling in love with the idea of having a penis. Meanwhile, we have beings who were born with penises who are falling in love with the idea of being a woman. So there's an intersection, an interweaving that's happening in mainstream that a lot of us are not paying attention to. What is the most important reason why society has started to highlight this trans narrative and this trans experience is because it sees an opportunity to capitalize off of them. Like I said again, what this reality features, it features beings who are willing to change themselves in order to fit into the colonizer's definition of what it means to be a woman. At this point in my life, I don't need a validation from society to tell me who I am. I am whole. I am my mother and my father, my grandmother and my grandfather, my great-grandmother and my great-grandfather on both sides. I am Aboriginal. I am indigenous. I am melanated. I am black. There's Caucasian blood. There is Asian blood. There is Latina blood in my DNA. I am the daughter and the son of the cosmos. This planet, this universe, this solar system is my home. I am a child of the many who were the one and shall be the one again. So at this point in my existence, in this body, I don't need validation from the system. However, I can use the resources. And those resources are to continue to nurture and foster these ideas that will continue to challenge groups that claim to hold space for us as individuals. Society has this westernized society has a tendency to do what it does with medicine. We don't practice holistic medicine here. We practice parts of it. We don't practice holistic governments because we're just now seeing our first taste of femininity in the White House. And all of the centuries that this nation has been established, for the first time we're seeing a woman who was born with a vagina inside of the White House. So in the Vatican, there's never been a being who was born with a vagina that we know of that has served inside of the Vatican. So we live in a one-sided reality. And that is why in certain groups and circles, whoever is going to be the wild card and whoever is going to challenge those societies or challenge those constructs or challenge those ideas that the status quo has in order to quickly be adopted into what mainstream is doing, they try to silence them and rub them out. Gender person. I personally don't feel like China was transgender. I feel like China was a being who was just embracing the path of her foremothers. I don't think that she changed her gender. I think that I don't know her, but I do know that she was ready to have gender reassignment surgery. And she was young. So this means that she had a sense of who she was in her childhood. So that's not a change of gender. That's an embrace of who you are. Embrace of the path of your foremothers. It's an embrace of your identity. She was not a being who lived 50, 60 years as a man getting male privileges like several Caucasian trans people who we now see stepping into the ranks and the hallowed halls of power and claiming power for themselves as women. The art of war is knowing when to switch sides. And there's definitely a lot of that going on around here. So she was not that type of being. And after her passing, we kind of commercialized this aesthetic for trans beings that was about surgeries, that equated our identities to surgery. And I've been saying this, and I've said this before, and I said this 10 years ago. I simply changed my outsides to match what was going on the inside of me. I did not change my gender. I made changes to my body, which is no different than a female going in and getting breast implants, or a male going in and having his penis enlarged, or having some laser done because he doesn't like where hair grows on his body. Or like, I wanted to affirm my identity on the path of my foremothers, but I did not change my gender. I cannot express that enough. I did not live as a man. I did not live inside of that construct and then say, oh, I'm this now. No, I've always been two-spirited, and my female gender has always been the most pronounced. I've evolved. That's what happened. I was a caterpillar who became a butterfly, but I was always destined to be a butterfly. That was what I was gonna be anyway, regardless as to whether I would have physically made changes through having surgical enhancements. I was still gonna be that butterfly. And so, but in order to capitalize off of our community, certain alliances have been made, and you can tell the people who are sincere and the people who really care, those were the people who supported you before you were where the money resided. Because some people honestly didn't see it for you until they knew.
All right, we going. What a money reside, what a money reside, what a money reside, what a money reside. Okay, let me tell you something. I'm doing something real big this month.
Then once they saw that it was about a coin and that they could garner some type of status off of being in your space and sharing space with you, all of a sudden then you became relevant. And because I challenge that wherever I go, one of the reasons why I continue to work with BTAG, Black Trans Advocacy.
But remember who we need. Stay covered as you discover self. LelimLeLur. I am separate but equal.
Was because I wanted to make sure that this next generation that was coming up did not lose that truth. I've always tried to protect the sacredness of this experience because I know that this was never a gimmick for me. It was never a game for me. It was never a joke. That is why I had so many problems with T.S. Madison.
Morning, and you know, T.S. Madison, aka the big dick bitch, came up. And when she started talking about her, you know, she's talking about her positively, you know, like, oh, I love her, I respect her because she speaks her mind, and, you know, so it...
Anyway, I was looking at a video out there. There was a girl, her name was Tila Love. It was a Tila Love channel, and she had made a video, and she was saying that there was a girl named Milan that was, you know, talking about me and that she looked up to me and stuff like that or whatever, you know. And I have a habit of saying that I'm not a part of the community. I don't give a fuck about the community. I have a habit of saying that because the black LGBT community has really, you know, given me a lot of slack over the way that I am and my boisterous attitude and you know, the crazy shit that I do.
The reason why I made this video is because I think that, and hopefully, you know, T.S. Madison will see this video, and I want her to realize, you know, and this is, I'm saying this out of love, you know, I know you said, you know, F the community, you know, and I'm a transgender woman, transsexual, because I want to have bottom surgery. I've already had the first one, so I consider myself transsexual. But, you know, I want to say this to T.S. Madison, you know, that, and I will say it to her face if I ever got a chance to see her, that there are a lot of girls in this trans world, whether you want them to or not, that look up to you. You know, you out there, you know what I'm saying, you are a role model, real model, whether you want to be it or not.
And I'm not saying that T.S. Madison is not a real trans person.
But understand, as a visionary, we were in such a fragile space. And her desire to capitalize and to gain wealth was compromising the integrity of the movement in my mind. And so I didn't hate her. I never hated her. But I wanted to make sure that we didn't lose our souls in pursuit of wealth, in pursuit of material things. We didn't lose our essence, our stories, our culture, our heritage, our spiritual identities. I felt all of that was slipping. That is part of the reason why I picked up and I started back using these past couple of years. Africa was such a healing thing for me, because when I got to Africa, I saw it was the environment and the people that I was trying to be in community with, even after they had harmed me. Even after they harmed me. Trying to be in spaces with people who did not respect me and did not value me unless I was playing the game as they thought I should. I was harming myself, and that is why I started using, because I needed to be able to talk about certain things and I couldn't express them in the way that I wanted to. I didn't have the resources to creatively say things the way that I wanted to say them. I couldn't put these narratives out because I didn't have the resources to put on those types of productions. So I did what I could with what I had, but there was so much inside of me that needed to heal and that I needed to purge, and I could not use my platform to say the things that I wanted to say, because I would have been stopping other people from getting their bag. But those people who were getting their bag wasn't concerned about saying, okay, you know what, let me still support the work that she's doing, because even though it doesn't align with what I'm doing, I can still see it as being valuable to other people. It's very important for people to find their voice. It's very important for people to be able to advocate for themselves. It's very important for people to be able to creatively express themselves. And so these things that she's embedding in the community, I've had one of my gay brothers say on his platform, all black people, think, they want to sing and dance and play sports. And he really honestly prizes, academics and science. To me, it's not about what you aspire to do. It's the integrity behind what it is that you're doing. It's the substance behind whatever it is that you're doing. If you want to sing, sing with some substance. Have some integrity. Have a message that is not just about capital gain. Because you can be working for an organization that has a good reputation because everybody's scared to say something because they don't want to not get their paycheck. That doesn't mean that what that organization is doing is above board. It doesn't mean that they are a pillar of society. When I left Brotherhood, and that was the final straw for me with organized community. I never created my own nonprofit because I could not imagine, like right now, I had thoughts about starting a nonprofit, and then when I thought about it, I was like, I would have to be promoting them vaccines. I would have to be in support of people taking vaccines, people getting tested. I'm not fixing to turn people into guinea pigs for money. That should be your choice. I'm not going to tell you, you have to take this test in order for you to get in here, or you have to get this vaccine, or you have to do this in order. And a lot of these organizations, that's the direction that they're going in. The government is going to mandate that they have to treat people with certain, you have to take this test, you have to get this vaccine, you have to be a lab rat, you have to be a guinea pig. And I'm not doing that to people. That is not what this work is about. This work is about you finding your voice, you finding that thing that speaks to you, like in Soul, the movie with Jamie Foxx. Find your thing, find your niche. And if I can help you to find that, so that you can find your tribe, and so that you can find other beings who are like you, that affirm you, and build you, then the work is not in vain. And so in this video, if anyone is offended by what I've said, like I said in my promotion clip, charge it to my head and not to my heart. As an elder in my community, and I'm getting ready to be 44 years old, it is incumbent upon me to speak with integrity and to challenge myself and everything around me, to hold myself and everything around me accountable. And if you take issue with my message and the things that I am saying, because I know that I am not saying it violently, then that sounds like some inner work that you need to do. It sounds like you need to do a personal inventory and search yourself. It has nothing to do with me. But critical thinking is very important. And this machine does not like critical thinkers, because most people they hire, they get you before you turn 26. This machine is not a fan of critical thinking. And that's the problem. You can't want everyone at the table if you don't want the one at the table who's going to ask questions about the meal. Because if we just sit down and say, oh, well, let's be thankful for the food, and then somebody eat it and they have an allergic reaction or they get sick, what then? So we need to ask about what we're being forced to eat. We need to have questions. And anyone who has integrity, anyone who has the least bit of understanding and compassion, they would see why that is necessary. So I'm not going to hold y'all long in this video. I'm going to light this candle to acknowledge my ancestors. Now, I want to say this plainly. There was a time when I was completely rejecting societal norms because of the violence and the silencing that I had been subjected to in allegedly professional spaces.
Equal, I belong to the people. Yeah, we be the people. We are not the minority. We are the majority. Don't let them lie to you. Don't let them divide you.
Or as I like to call them, prophonial spaces. So there was this whole dark and chaotic era that came on my timeline because there was something in me that was trying to come out, and I didn't have a way of expressing it in a healthy way. So in my garden now, there is that season of pain that manifested because I was trying to purge myself of the toxicity that I had accumulated from trying to interact with academics and elitists in that realm. Feeling like where I came from was wrong, and it was bad, and being ashamed of my past legacy and wanting to have a new legacy, I allowed myself to be sucked in to the illusion that somehow I wasn't prostituting myself when I was working for the state and when I was working for Brotherhood. But I was prostituting myself because there was a certain level of conformity that was expected of me. So I wasn't even selling my authentic self. I was selling a fake version of myself, just like when I was on the streets. No one wanted to buy the real me. They wanted the weave, they wanted the makeup, they wanted the look. And I think that's the same thing that they want in professional spaces. They want the illusion. They don't want your true narrative. They want the one that you have learned to perform. I will go more into detail about some of the things that I discussed in my book. And yes, I am putting out this book and putting out this music so that I can earn some capital with the gifts that the ancestors have given me, so that I can leave something for those children who are coming that cannot fit in this box. A man, a woman. For those children who cannot fit in this box and should not have to, so that they won't have to poison themselves like I did. I think that in society, there's always going to be challenges. There's always going to be things that we're going to have to overcome. There's always going to be crosses that we have to bear and mountains that we'll have to climb. But please don't have to climb the same exact ones, girl. You know, let's evolve. I am thankful for the research that I've been able to do in my life to help to take this community to the next level. Society is promoting a certain kind of being because it's beneficial to them, capital-wise. But ask yourself, what role are you playing in tomorrow? Are you just another variable in the equation that is justifying everything that the machine is doing? So many of us are getting sick. So many of us have hypertension, diabetes, you know, all type of diseases and problems that are manifesting from the taxing realities that we are subjecting ourselves to every day, just because there are not enough beings like myself who have the courage to say, this is some fuckery. And y'all know all too well.
Not here for the fuckery, you bugging me. Not here for the fuckery, don't fuck with me. Not here for the fuckery, you bugging me. Not here for the fuckery, you bugging me. Miss your tooth is ugly, you just a muck and weed. Your spirit vexes me, you trying to hex me, B. So get up and leave, you hate your own with ease. Just buzzing around like bees, been poisoned by your queen. This ain't the field of dreams, you weren't built to come for me. We don't need your company, some things ain't meant to be. So be gone, you flee, before I set this goddess free. Don't make me set this goddess free, me set the goddess free.
Okay, so if I can leave, create a path for a tribe of beings who will come through, not just with body, not just with some face, but with a mind, and not with a mind that just goes along to get along and serves to build up Massa's kingdom, but minds that think with the left and the right side of their brain, minds that create and destroy. Create what needs to be created and destroy what needs to be destroyed. Beings who are both sides of the coin. LelimLeLur. Let him, let her. Let dark and light, for they all are one. We are the many that came from the one and will go back to the one. I leave you with that. This is the path that I am on. And my ancestors have told me, keep going. Keep going. Keep going. I stand on the shoulders of every Moses that has come. But understand, I am Harriet. Down but down the Raseku, it keeps spinning and turning. Iangani, Iyanko Kalukalo, which means I am a child of God Goddess. And if I am, you know you are.